go ahead and disconnect that, and then we'll lower the two pieces to the ground separately. Can we go ahead and just remove that piece with the 4 pipes right at that location so that nothing gets bent or broke? The whole thing's going to get rewired anyway.
This is the kind of building that gives you chills. It's so beautiful. You know, it was 1936. It was built within a year. I mean, it was 9 months, I think their construction was, which is just pretty astonishing. Craftsmanship, the attention to detail. This is one of the most beautiful rooms I've ever been in, the Great Hall. That's what it feels like. That's what I bring to this. I'm really grateful to be a part of the project. It's important that we do it right. The attention to detail that the original architects and craftsmen put into it, we're going to maintain that.
Originally, the light fixture was red, white, and blue. Although the transparency of the glass has changed where it all looks like it's black now, originally this would have been a beautiful red, white, and blue fixture. And of course, it'll be that way when we reinstall it. The greatest challenges most people don't understand on a project like this, the plans very clearly show you what the intent is to restore certain elements, but they don't tell you how to do them. The intent is to hire art conservators and knowledgeable people in the various trades and have them design their own work, the work process, the materials, do the investigation about the historical conditions, the finishes. Then once those processes are determined, the scope magnifies to the 100 windows that are involved in the building, or the tens of thousands of square feet of stone that have to be restored over a period of time. So many of the challenges involved doing the historical research, figuring out what the processes were to all be.
So let's come an inch on the side of this, all the way down. That way when we fill it all in, we could recut that and make that nice clean line again. Patching on the outside. This is just natural deterioration, but we need to get all this white out though.
Yeah.
That's why we're gonna have them come cut this and square it all up. So when we put our patch in and then we cut our joint, we're gonna have a nice, clean, straight joint.
And I'm Stefan Kessler. I'm with Park and Rec. I'll be the project manager.
I'm Dale Sellers. I'm the owner of Phoenix One Restoration and Construction.
Michael Van Inter, I'm the art conservator consultant on this project.
Regina Shalou, I'm a project manager with Phoenix One Restoration.
Valletta Forsyth Lill, President, Dallas Historical Society.
Marcel Quimby, I'm with Ginsler. I'm the Historic Preservation Architect.
Park and Rec Department is very excited about this project, understand the importance of the building, and
When Phoenix realized this project's magnitude and the scopes of work that were involved, one of the greatest challenges was going to be able to find and put together a team of enough art conservators and enough artisans and craftsmen to actually do the job in the length of time that was available to do that. A team for the metalwork, a team for the gold gilding, a team for the window restoration, a team for the door restoration. So we're incredibly proud to have been able to put everybody together as a team and working in parallel so we could meet the time schedule that was required.
They've done a really good job, and I mean, when we signed, the bond got signed, and this work got agreed upon, they've hit the ground running, and this building really needed it. And hopefully by this time next year, or shortly after the fair, it'll be like a brand new building. I mean, the new AC, the new paint, the new outside, new inside. You know, they built this stuff before ADA compliance, so all of it's going to be ADA compliant. That's something we have to worry about during the fair. I mean, you've got thousands of people coming in here a day. You know, that's a major issue for us, you know, and so all of these seemingly little issues are getting fixed, and it's going to be like a brand new building.
We're going to get our underground utilities done in the next week or so, then the concrete. We've got to remove all the sandstone pavers in front of the building. We've got to remove all the steps in front of the building. There will be substrate repair, waterproofing. There will also be some amount of new stone required. We'll only really be able to determine the exact amount when we pull the steps up and see how many of them come up in one piece. So you got phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. 2 to 3 months each one will get us done with approximately 2 weeks of float time prior to the fair starting next year.
Well, there's a reason this is called Fair Park. This is where the fair is. Only 3 times has it been canceled: World War I, World War II, and during this pandemic.
Probably hasn't been undone since 1936. I've been running a few preliminary tests to see if we can determine which is the original finish, and we can see what's going on that surface. And you're seeing some areas of oxide that have gone into the pits. All the little bright flashy bits, that's bits of lacquer that was used on here that are fluorescing in the light. And here on the inside of our hinge, we can see that There's a factory coating, and this probably has never been off before. It wasn't just polished, it was patinated. This is historic right there. So I think we have the story.
From what I understand, the claim was that they had not been sandblasted, and yet there's sand dumping out of this everywhere.
Instead of taking this down to bare metal, what we do very conservatorily, we don't sandblast that. We just by hand wire brush the loose material off. We use a few little chemicals to get the garbage they sprayed on it in the 80s off. That's original. These have been replaced.
Yeah, so, and this actually screwed, if we can clean that really well with the wire brush, or are you going to replace it probably?
We're just going to replace it.
It's amazing when you think that if this hadn't been done, these would have just fallen apart.
Carry on. All of the armatures are completely rotted out. Every last steel pin holding these together has got to be replaced. So there's going to be quite a lot of mechanical work on these. We'd originally done a classic forensic investigation on what the finishes were. So when we took these apart, we found little key areas under overlapping surfaces. And based on what we found there, we'd come up with the brushed finish, which had been protected from the sandblasting. All these bars here, all this work, the straight pieces are polished with the same brushed finish.
Okay.
This has got no sealer on it. This will be bright, and this has got a hot wax, traditional hot wax.
Okay.
From the historic photographs that we had, too many years had passed, so all we had to go on was this tiny traces of information. We worked quite hard to get these to resemble the way they did in 1937. It was approved, and then one of the custodians said, well, there's a historic book talking about some of the finishes.
The Hall Estate was known as the State of Texas Building in 1936. This is a 1936 book, and it was being used to try to find some of the original paint schemes. When these pictures in this book were found, Phoenix One started looking at the book, investigating it further, and then found what the finishes would look like on the doors.
I just got this picture sent to me via my camera, my phone, that said, have a look at this. And I said, oh, bugger, that's, when were these taken? Turned out that it was produced in 1937, but we can see from the angle of the light, this time of day, it was direct western light, and then we made this odd discovery that highlights had been picked up on certain of the motifs. So we had to change the patination method, repatinate them, and then sealing it with a nitrocellulose lacquer. We're oxidizing the surface. The heat makes the oxide very stable. Remember, this is a black art. It's somewhere between art and science. And be careful, don't breathe that steam. It's nasty. Use a wooden hammer, but put a drop of the Loctite in it and just get it snug so it's not going to turn.
Están hechos del material que es el limestone. Vamos a comenzar a sentar lo que es la parte de enfrente de los escalones en el radio. Sé que el edificio ha estado por casi 94 años. Sé que es uno que ocupa el tercer lugar en lo que es el estado de Texas, porque sé que uno está en San Antonio y el otro parece que es el de Austin. Es un centro histórico aquí en lo que es el estado de Dallas. Pues por eso que estoy orgulloso de estar en este lugar.
Échale bastantillo. Yo soy ladrillero y piedra y pues de todo ponemos. Como yo es lo único que he hecho especial porque es mucha historia. Tenemos que cuidar especialmente la piedra, que no la lastimemos. Tenemos que cuidar la historia. Y espero venir de nuevo para enseñarles a mis hijos lo que hice.
It's in the tombs in Egypt. In the Bible, they talk about gilding different artifacts. In the Torah and the Bible in the Old Testament, like the Ark of the Covenant was covered with gold. Coatings, and we figured that they should come off. So we removed those with a chemical stripper and got down to the original bronze. Last night we were able to apply the phenolic resin size from France that we apply the gold to. It's a rubbery tack, and when you put your gold on, it grabs the gold. It forms a seal that literally the air will hold it. The air pressure holds it against the surface. The gold is really good quality, and it's a very heavy weight for exterior use. But even though it's the heavy, thick weight gold, it's still less than 5 microns thick. It's about 1/10 the thickness of a human hair. Every 1,000 leaves is 21 grams. So a gold coin is 27 grams. We have 9 boxes, a little over $11,000.
You want me to go ahead and push him between his toes or wait?
I've been an art conservator since 1985. I worked for other people that did gold leaf in Paris, which is how I picked it up. This is my 40th year doing this sort of stuff. How's the tack up there, John? Still good?
Yeah.
I really lean hard on my material physics backgrounds in making sure that we use the best products, the best procedures to protect the artifacts, to keep the original sculpture from being damaged in any way. It just makes me feel good to know that it's done right and that it's going to look great. You know, that's what was there back in '36. I love keeping the history alive. This brush from Italy is made with squirrel hair, Italian squirrel hair. Anyway, it's nice and soft, and it's used to push and turn and skew the gold. This is ox ear hair, pulled from the ear of an ox. It's very soft, but it has a nice reach, so I can get in there and do a thin area. This is skunk hair. They're a little bit stiffer, so when the gold's giving me a little bit of resistance, I have something like this to get in there and make sure I get the gold scrubbed into the size. There's this love of where you came from. Like, if you don't know where you came from, it's a hollow existence. If you have no connection to the past, and the past doesn't mean anything to you, where does it take us as a culture? Our being will be diminished. I love the idea of the history, and I love it when people restore the history or keep it going so that everybody can see what it was like back in 1936. I love history. I hate when it gets torn down. I love it when it gets restored. Sometimes it's inevitable that something has to go, but in Fair Park, that can't be. This is too important. It's too wonderful a place for Dallas to ever not take care of.
So we've got two different lantern finishes. When I put a microscope onto it and I started looking at it, and this oxide is about twice as hard as the aluminum itself. There's a sort of a honey gold color. And here you can start to see where the last part it didn't get, you can actually see the lacquer finish with the bronze powder. This is also got that gold. This is not an accurate representation, but that's just to give you an idea about the color range, maybe a bit lighter than that. And these go behind these spaces. That's gold oxide. It was completely rotten. All the hardware, all the rods, so we've had to just improvise. And you can see it's just this very pretty honey gold, but it's got a beautiful iridescence about it. And remember, I said right from the beginning, this was a very light champagne kind of gold. It wasn't gold. It didn't look like the Tejas Warrior. And this is actually very in keeping with the Art Deco palette at the time, the kind of metal colors that you saw.
There was a paint analysis done on the entire building, and during the course of the analysis we uncovered these decorative finishes that were applied to the doors on the first generation when the building was built, and they had long since been painted over and forgotten about.
For the Texas Centennial, you would have artisans traveling across the country using their talents to create these fabulous spaces. The amount of talent and interesting things that they did was amazing. It took a while to understand what was there. You know, the color you see and the color it was are just like night and day.
So this is called a stipple. It distributes the paint in a pattern. The more you do this, the tighter you can get it and the more even. And over the years, I've had to learn how to do it with both hands because it gets really tiring, especially when you're doing whole walls in this finish. Because these are Texas rooms and they have a lot of themes, we assumed that this was meant to look like leather-clad doors.
West Texas room. It's really cool. Ceramic tile from San Antonio, both on the floor and the decorative panels on the walls. And that wall was, embossed with symbols of brands that were used at the various ranches in West Texas.
The West Texas room has a very unusual kind of pitted plaster made to look old. When I first saw these plaster walls, I was absolutely sure that there was going to be a glaze on it because it's just the kind of thing that you would want to see. And couldn't find it anywhere, and was getting upset thinking, okay, they just painted these walls kind of a creamy buff. I guess that's okay. So there's a lot of hardware that had never been removed. For the original blinds, those areas where we pulled back the blinds and the glaze was intact, the color and everything, and it was perfect. Every surface in this building was hand-touched. The metal was hand-touched. The paint was hand-touched. Everything had glazes and stipples and finishes. I have lots of characters in my mind of what these people probably looked like and sounded like. May not be true, but it's cool.
Yeah, it's a big day. After a year, it's almost exactly a year that we're taken down. It's a relief to see it leave the studio and go home. 84 years of corrosion and mistreatment, and then the sandblasting.
It's gorgeous. It's just absolutely wonderful. And this is the first time it's been gold, it's original gold tone. So it's going to be a huge surprise to people that are expecting an aluminum light fixture to come back.
We had to just take everything back to new, and we're proud of the product that we've produced, and we think it'll outlast the original. The craftsmanship built into the original is just stunning. It's just, you just don't have time to do that kind of work today. You know, that wouldn't cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's 95% original, and that is a testament to the quality of the original artisan-made pieces.
I feel like we need to be playing that song Chandelier. It's pretty exciting.
We're truly Art Deco geeks.
I think they're more, instead of to give illumination, they're there as an object to absorb illumination.
Hey, we did it right.
You can see the red and blue.
The ADA ramp is the only major change to the building since 1936. We needed this to allow for access for all of our citizens, and quite frankly, it turned out to be quite beautiful.
And if you'll notice, all the handrails are very close matched to the finish of the main doors at the entryway.
And very compatible with the Hall of State.
So one of the big challenges in doing that was not affecting the overall aesthetics of the front of the building.
As you gaze upon the building, they sit gently on the architecture.
We're a generational company. I'm the fourth generation. My great-grandfather started our business in 1922. We're about 3 miles east of Fair Park, and we've done a lot of work at Fair Park over the years. There's a lot of generational projects that our family has done stone on. This is a really unique one. We normally don't do stuff this ornamental. You just don't really see a lot of stuff like this anymore. Oh! So to be able to replicate it in 2020 is pretty special. It's a feather in our cap. Those wings cover all of this.
Yeah, but I didn't want to cover something up with the wings if you still need to get in here.
We kind of scratched our heads for a little bit to figure out how exactly we were going to do this. It was actually made in 7 individual pieces. Nowadays we put things together with epoxy and resins, but back in the day they just had rebar and concrete. Moisture got to the rebar and the rebar expanded and popped. Phoenix One delivered the whole urn here to our yard. The wings were the trickiest part. They used so much rebar to keep it together originally. It was a very difficult process, of kind of tedious with heavy machinery to cut it all up and not damage it. We got all the pieces apart to be able to make our casts. Then we take it into our manufacturing facility. It's kind of a feather in the cap to do something this ornamental and this special to a lot of people in the city of Dallas. Just to be a part of it is something I'll be able to, you know, kind of brag about and get to enjoy for the rest of my life. And when I take my family to the fair, we'll be able to walk up to it and say, hey, you know, we had a part in this.
Value of the past is what gives a place its purpose and makes it special. Otherwise, we live in a sanitized world with where nothing is special or unique or extraordinary. And I think Fair Park is extraordinary. Certainly, the Hall of State is extraordinary. I think this is the most architecturally important building in Texas, and maybe the most important building in the greatest state in the greatest nation in the world.
Most of our restoration projects are around intense amount of stone restoration. And I think the stone really was the biggest aspect to me, was to see the patches and the repairs and the cleaning really just turn around the entire building.
It's been a year and a lot of hard work. It's just so nice to see it uncovered and out in the open, with sun hitting it as well. It's pretty spectacular. There are over 18,000 points of contact on these doors. And in those, there's armature screws, there's stainless, there's tapping, drilling, but 18,000 points. So, yeah, my favorite part of the doors is that they're finished.
To look at this and to see it in its majesty, you know, made it worth all the times I went down to council and said, we need this money in the bond, we need this money in the bond. I mean, I have stared at photographs of what this looked like in 1936. I'm tearing up because I'm so touched by the moment.